And here we go again with LinkedIn Live. And funnily enough, they're disappearing soon as LinkedIn is going to stop the audio sessions and make them videos, which is going to make it even more interesting what's going to happen next. Today's session is about how to avoid burnout and still make an impact in your career, in your life, and in your story. What will that mean? Well, we're going to find out when we open up the lines. Going to be chatting to Aziza and Debbie, and hopefully people will turn up. It is a Friday, and you never know what's going to happen, but that's what makes it so interesting. Welcome to Speak on Stage. And before we open up the lines, hello to Aziza and hello to Debbie. Debbie, you're in Zambia, and I believe you're huddling around candles just in case the Lecky's gone off again. Has it actually gone off at this moment, or you just like candlelit?
There is no electricity at the moment. Sorry, yes, hello.
Wow.
There's no electricity at the moment, so I can hear everybody's gen sets and all their devices in the background, and I'm just listening to cricket.
Well, cricket's good. I quite like listening to cricket. Here's the thing, right? If you suddenly disappear in the middle of today's session, I will understand completely and I won't take it personally. How long have you got on your phone? Has it got the battery indication?
Yeah, my phone battery's fully charged. My laptop's about 3/4. The Wi-Fi is attached. In theory, I am with you guys for the entirety of this show. In practice, we shall see.
That's amazing. So when the nuclear war happens, you'll be the person who lasts longest, but you'll have nobody to call because we'll all be turned into mush. Not to worry. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to open up the lines, and then we can start the conversation, letting everybody else come out to play. So just going live now, and let's see what happens when we just open up the conversations. Hopefully it'll be fascinating, as always. Aziza, you don't get stressed, do you? You're always chilled out and you just take it easy in life.
You're taking the piss?
Obviously. But you don't get burnt out. You actually have a really good fail-safe, which is that you clam up before then and kind of self-heal during that time. And you just don't interact until you feel better. And I think that's a really smart way of doing it. Because we know what to expect now. So that kind of works. And, Burt Reynolds is with us. That's amazing. Is it the Burt Reynolds? Well, of course it's the Burt Reynolds because the other one's gone. So I don't know if he'll be joining us on stage. That's good to know. And so when I hear noises in the background, Debbie, you're in the middle of what? Your whole family are sitting there in the dark on devices? Is that what it is? Is that why there's noise and crickets and stuff going on?
No. So I'm in my house. I'm secluded. I'm away from everybody. It's just my house is not prepared for as much electricity outage as everybody else is prepared.
Oh, goodness me, because they've all got generators and stuff that just kick in when they're ready.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Generators, inverters, they're sorted.
So they just go, ha, 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 and they just get used to all that stuff. But for you, it's just like the Dark Ages.
You know what? Initially, I was like, wow, this is so exciting. Now I'm like, okay, it's enough already.
It's strange, isn't it? We used to have a lot of power cuts. Not a lot, but I've infrequent power cuts when we lived in another emirate. I won't say which one. And what would happen is it would go out and they just wouldn't tell anybody or say anything or do anything, and you just have to wait to see if it'd come back on. And what I'd do is, because the times it happened was usually in the middle of the heat of the summer, where it was just unbearable to be inside, but even more unbearable to be outside. So I just raid as much ice as I could do, put it in flasks, get all the hot water I could, put it in flasks, and just wait to see if it would get better. I get the candles ready, and sometimes it would just go overnight like you're doing, and then you'd wake up and everything had kicked in like nothing happened. I think 12 hours was the most I went without any electricity, and it was okay. It wasn't great. It just felt like you were camping in your own house.
I mean, in the past it would be like a few hours, so this is new for me. You're looking at maybe 20 hours.
Ooh.
21 hours. Yeah, it's very surreal.
Is it night times that it happens, or is it any time it could happen?
The electricity went this morning at about 5 a.m.
Oh, no. So just before you get stuck into doing anything, you're on your own?
Yeah. And the day before, it had come on at 2 and gone off at 5.
That's never good.
It really is just guesswork. But like I said, my mum and everybody is so prepared. For them, this is the norm. For me, it's like, what?
Do you get sympathy from people, or do they just go, well, you should live here permanently, and then you'd have sorted it? Are they like, you've got other places to be, so we're not helping? Or they're very kind and generous and say, come around ours if you need to?
There's always the invitation to come around ours, but there's always the laughter. There's always the laughter.
Yeah.
So it's been one of those things where everybody's enjoying me returning from the UK and not used to how things are now running.
Do you know them really well? Did you grow up with them? So it's like lifelong friends kind of thing. So it's like jokey but like kind. Yeah. Okay, good. So it's not like it's not like new friends who just don't care. These are people that care but just find it funny.
Trust me, my lifelong friends find it funny. My friends in the last 5-10 years find it hysterical because they just think that I should know better.
Well, that's their problem. For you, you're on holiday and you should enjoy it. Let's send it out that we're live and see what happens. Here's the thing. Oh, David Abel's arrived. Brilliant. We can get him on. He's a good lad. LinkedIn has had lots of... I was going again. Typical. LinkedIn has decided to kill its live audio. And I think because of a reason that, we've noticed it the last couple of weeks especially, it's been really difficult to hold an audience. Before when we first started, you get 20, sometimes 30 people, and it just felt really comfortable. Then it's dribs and drabs. And I think they just changed the algorithm to make it really impossible. So what they ended up with is they said that basically between now and the 2nd of December, you're allowed to post that you've got a gig coming up. And then after that, by the 15th, if you haven't got anything booked in, it'll be gone. But we'll let you carry on to the end of the year. Then what we're going to do next year, apparently, is we're going to have it so there's videos. Now, I don't know what difference that is from LinkedIn Live as it was anyway, but they're encouraging people to go to video because apparently people didn't use the radio so much. But I think that lots of people enjoyed the radio because it was like, I'm having a bad hair day, so I don't need to worry about it. Whereas once on video, you're going to get less people wanting to come on camera. But I don't know if they're going to facilitate it so you could do something because I have cunning plans to do a game show style format, and I want to see how well that works. I used to do it on the radio years ago, and it'd be a chance to test it out. But I think that what we're going to do is just scrap the audio and maybe push it so you get a few more people turning up for your live to camera stuff. It's going through a really strange thing right now. It's just like TikTok, I think. And I don't do TikTok because I haven't got the patience. But I've been told off by my wife to make sure that I do have the patience because that's where all the kids are at. All the old people like me are at. Hello to Stephen and Alicia as well. Hopefully be joining us on stage. What I suggest, by the way, Stephen and Alicia, before we open for you to come on stage, if you can just share that we're live, and hopefully we'll have a few people coming out to play, which would be really cool. And we'll see if we can get the room kind of busy. What normally happens is people arrive late, and then by the time that they arrive, they're like, well, we're done now. No, I want to speak. No, we don't care. We just want to go home now. Well, not go home, we live at home. But I just want to finish the show. No, I've got loads to tell you. Let me tell you about me and how long I went to college for and all the stuff like that. And you're like, please just stop doing it. So there we go. So today it's all about burnout and still making an impact. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But I know that Debbie probably knows more about that particular area of expertise. I used to be a hypnotherapist, so I used to work with people to be able to stop them feeling burnout and imposter syndrome and de-stress them. But Debbie's our most recent person who's been trained. What did you get trained to do, Debbie, when you've got somebody who comes to you stressed, and especially if they are feeling that they're at the end of everything? What's your advice that you'd normally give? Take your time.
Sorry, I nearly lost you then.
Mm-hmm.
It would always be just sitting, breathing, grounding, and being as present as you can be would be my first point of information.
Right.
Because that would be where you need them to just calm down without actually having to tell them to calm down, so that they're present, so that you can then work with them, and so that they're very much with you.
Okay.
Because that way they start to see things in a different way, as opposed to if they come in and they're frazzled and you're like, okay, fine, I'm just going to hypnotize you. No, it's like a gentle kind of visualization or a meditation just to get them to be open, to relax, and then you start working on And then, that's when I would start working on how to unravel or simplify what it is that they're feeling so overwhelmed about.
When you do hypnosis on people and you do stress management with people, a lot of people don't believe that hypnosis is actually happening. They just say, well, I just relaxed and I fell asleep. And you're like, well, that's what it feels like when you're hypnotized. Do you do the pinch test on people to prove that they were actually out of it?
No. So with the 5 modalities that I do, the one which I love the most would be the Ericksonian method.
Right.
So where it's conversational and you pretty much talk them into it, or they talk themselves into it, should I say.
Lovely.
And then the quantum healing, the QHHT. That's another one of the popular ones.
I don't know that one because I learned all my stuff about 20 years ago when me and Moses did it together. Not in a, I'm married. But I didn't learn all the other stuff. So tell me through the quantum stuff because that's relatively new to me.
Okay, so there's a lady, Dolores Cannon. She's no longer with us.
Right.
And she created a hypnotherapy treatment called quantum healing hypnotherapy, hypnosis therapy. And with that, everybody gets what it is that actually realizing that they're relaxing, that they're being hypnotized. And as they start then going through the process, you then guide them. And that's when the subconscious mind, which is always protecting.
Yeah, dropping out slightly, I'm afraid. But
unraveling and allowing them.
So it's self-healing. It basically gives them permission. I can hear you again now. It basically gives them permission to be able to heal themselves and just sort of babysit the process.
In fact, that's probably the best way I would have described it. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll tell you what, I mean, one of the things is when I do stage hypnosis shows, I don't do them that often, but when you put people in trance state for about an hour, and we do crazy stuff like dancing on stage and singing and being completely off it, by the end of it, they're so chilled out and relaxed. It's just the most amazing experience for everybody. And I love doing hypnosis shows because it's almost exactly the same as doing therapy, but you get to have a laugh at the same time. And it's got a really bad reputation when it comes to talking about hypnosis because people think that certainly in this part of the world, in the Middle East, it's kind of got connotations of black magic and all the rest of it. But it's not. I mean, it's the same thing that when you go to pray or you do yoga or any kind of meditation, you go into a trance state and that's ultimately what happens. So, when you explain to people it's just scientific based, you've got no magical powers, you're not Harry Potter, but you can guide them into doing it for themselves. And I find that people just allow themselves to do it, which is wonderful. And then you can get them to hump furniture in front of all their family and friends. No, you don't do that. That'd be a terrible idea. So here's the thing. Do you feel that there's a bigger chance of us getting burnout now in this year than maybe previous years? I've got this feeling that the world's kind of like, it's in a very weird spot. The AI stuff is kind of settling a little bit and we're getting used to it being part of our lives and integrating it where we can. The paranoia that's going to take over everything and ruin it for everybody has kind of subsided a bit. But I just get the feeling that there's a lot more toxicity and also a lot fewer guardrails for people to feel that they can rely on their governments or can rely on the big companies. You always felt that people had your best intentions at heart. And I don't get the feeling it's like that. I get the feeling now it's really like almost every man or woman or whatever for themselves. And let's see if we can make our own communities to share content and share warning signs with each other. And so I wouldn't trust what I read online unless somebody who I trust verifies that they've been hearing it from other sources too. I don't know what you guys think of that. I'd love to know. And if you just joined us, by the way, that's Sankanjan and Stephen and Alicia, very welcome to join us on stage and share your thoughts on this. We do it for about an hour, really. Obviously, if I'm just talking for an hour or so, I'll still do it because I love the sound of my own voice. That's how big my ego is. But I'd love to know from Debbie, what's your thoughts on that?
If anything, I would say this year seems a lot more stressful for a lot more people. There seems to be, I mean, I know in the UK there's a lot of people that I know personally who've been laid off in this last year. So they've been impacted by that dramatically. Whatever, and people now are actually realizing that there is a better way of life if they choose it to be. I mean, I had to laugh. The UK prices doubled in the last 2-3 years.
Yep.
Whether it was rentals, whether it was groceries, all of these things were doubling. People's salaries were not. So there's that pressure that would come in, and then you find a lot of people would say, well, it's because of the wars that are going on that this is why these prices have gone up. Strange enough, me coming back here to Zambia, I'm hearing the exact same excuses, and I'm thinking, why would a situation in Europe affect somewhere in Southern Africa?
Well,
again, prices have. Go on.
No, I was going to say, go ahead. I'm listening to you. I was just going to comment because there's a little gap, but please finish off what you're saying.
Yeah. So again, prices have trebled, if not quadrupled. Rentals have increased dramatically. House prices, groceries are absurd. Petrol, all of these prices have increased, and people's salaries have not. So there is definitely pressure around the world in varying degrees. And as a result, people will feel it, because even though money, as they say, is not a necessity, you still need it to survive.
Yeah, of course it's a necessity. Yeah, of course. I mean, here's the thing. We're now, certainly in the events industry, I can feel it, we're now out of a pandemic. But the pandemic took about 3 years to be able to feel that the waves weren't coming the same way. And that's had a knock-on effect. Remember, the whole world kind of shut down for about a year, maybe longer, maybe a year and a half. And so during that time, a lot of things became more expensive and a lot more scarce. But what generally tends to happen is the prices don't go down again, because you just think, oh, this is what it is everywhere. I'm just going to keep it like that. And they wait for other people to raise themselves more money. I mean, when you talk about a recession that hits, and I'm not an economic expert at all, but a recession tends to be not that there's less money, it's just that there's less spending of money. The people who've got money have still got it, they just tend not to spend, which has a knock-on effect and a level of scarcity in the mindset of everybody, so they kind of don't do anything for a while. But there's still food out there, there's still opportunities, there's still business. I think that what you talked about with people losing work in the UK is a problem. I mean, I talked about this I can't remember, maybe about a year and a half ago. I said there's a massive there's a massive laying off of grey warriors. People who've been middle management, started to do well for themselves, always thought it was comfortable, but before AI even kicked in, I said there's a very good chance that they'll be laid off first, because they're just really expensive. So they've got families to support, they've got expensive insurance, they need holiday pay and all the rest of it, and it's much easier to get in younger people who have got credit cards that they like spending. And so certainly that used to be a drive in a lot of places. When you're talking about being an expat in the Middle East, I know that was at some point seen as a potential policy to just bring in a new workforce every couple of years, let them get bedded into the place and let them spend credit cards. I mean, it makes economic sense. Meanwhile, everybody goes home and you just keep the churn going. At the same time, now they've got a drive to keep people here. I recently got my golden visa a couple of months ago, which is a 10-year visa to stay in the UAE. So they clearly want us to be here. But one of the things I discovered by going back to the UK in the summer is the UK was a lot more expensive than it was to be in the UAE. Dubai, the city of gold, is cheaper to go out and get a meal than it is to do it in the UK. So that was kind of a bit of a shocker. If you just joined us, by the way, nice to see you. If you want to join us on stage, you're very welcome to do that. Margaret, lovely to see you too. I was in a room with Margaret. It sounds rude, it wasn't. And it was a LinkedIn room. And she has the most incredible groups of people that come along and spend quality time. I mean, her rooms still pull in 60 people. I don't know anybody else is doing that. And she really nurtures and loves this community and spends quality time with everybody, and that's something very special, and certainly I don't see that anywhere. Everyone else is just popping up and going hi, a bit like we're doing here. So the thoughts are very much about the stress and the areas that really do wind people up. Do you think people are having to work longer to stay in their job as well, and it's kind of expected to do so? Because the last thing you want is a conversation where they say, we've been watching you and we think we have to let you go. Do you think that's the case as well, Debbie?
I do actually, because I found a lot of people that I've been speaking to in the UK are now worried about their jobs.
Right.
So as a result, they are getting stressed about it, and then they're applying themselves that much more just so that they look more impressive.
Yep.
When they're already doing a lot more than they should have been doing anyway.
Yeah, and the culture generally, the last couple of years, the culture has been to push people towards, leaders should lead from behind, and we should be, servant leaders to encourage their troops to do well. And as they're doing that, they just encourage everyone to grow past them. And that's how the mood has been in business. But I think that's changing. I think it's changing in a lot of places. I think America drives a lot of it without getting near the politics, which I try and avoid. But certainly the attitude towards trade unions and the rights of people to earn money and live the life we want to doesn't seem to be as prominent anymore. It's really a case of, you're on your own, Jack. Let's see what you can do. And I don't think without a warning anybody's in a position where they can do something like that. And it's kind of scary. I mean, for us, things can be challenging, but I know that if I don't go out and make business, I don't get anything. But that's the same even when we're busy. If I don't go out and hunt for it, then that's it. So I kind of find it comfortable because it's down to me to be able to fill the gap. But if I'd been middle management or upper management, I've been working for a number of years in the same company, and the industry changes slightly, I wouldn't know what to do to raise my position. You can only work as hard as you can. If you're older, nobody wants to take on an older member of staff because it's difficult. You never know what's going to happen. So you're going to get a lot of people in their 50s are scared and worried about it. And the thing is, we're going to live a lot longer than we've ever lived before. People will live to their 80s, 90s, 100s, and that won't be like a big surprise. And the old way of making a pension and sitting it there till you retire in your 70s or something like that, and then you live for another 10 years, and then it's all kind of matches up, that's not going to happen. Even the pensions we have aren't going to last that long. So people have to consider, what can I do in the third stage of my life to still earn an income as well as still stay active? And I don't know an easy way of doing that without getting stressed, unless you do start a side hustle business while you're still employed. So you've got the finances to be able to invest in making it happen, but it's not essential that it doesn't take off straight away. I don't know what the thoughts are of everybody in the room about this, and we're talking today about avoiding burnout and still making an impact. It does go full circle. So, if you make an impact, then you will avoid burnout. And if you avoid burnout, you usually are making an impact. But it really has to be driven by you. I don't get the feeling that there's a worldwide movement that's saying, take it easy and you'll be fine. Because I don't think people do believe that. If you look at the conversations about boomers, which is generally the age of our parents for many of us, when we start looking at them, they had a completely different spin on money, which is let's make a lot of it and let's not tell anybody we're making any. So, I've mentioned this before. There was a survey that was done in the UK, and this is a survey about 7 or 8 years ago, and they said that for the millennials, the time that they will actually have as much money as their parents is when they reach 64 and their parents die and they inherit the house and the car. They cannot earn it during their lifetimes like they were meant to be able to do before. So if that's the message that's being sent, I really worry about the younger generation that's coming through, because what are they going to inherit? I remember even being at school, we're told to do more of our leisure time because the world is going to change and the job situation is going to change. But nobody said, but you won't be able to earn anything. They just said all that's going to happen is you're going to have some more free time in your hands. So I'd love to know the thoughts of the people in the group on that. As always, if you don't want to come onto the stage, and Stephen, I did mute you last week and then you disappeared on me, only because I could get lots of background noise, and that's why, and you weren't speaking at that time. You're very welcome to come and join us again, by the way. If anybody else wants to come and join us on stage and share their thoughts on this, I'd love to know, because I think we're going to get a lot more people, maybe not burnt out, but in the situation that I was in after the pandemic, where I'd gone for about 2 years without any real concrete speaking gigs or training gigs, and we just managed to get through. And Aziza, who's my wife, very quiet today for some reason, she was an award-winning wedding photographer, no work because no gatherings of people for about 2 years. And so I had a thing called burn in. It wasn't burn out. I didn't collapse on the floor with drool coming out. What happened instead was I was just constantly pushing. It's like if the brakes have gone on your car and it's metal on metal, or if you get your wheels stuck in the sand and we're going round and round and not catching. That's what happened to me. So I didn't burn out, but I did feel this pressure, and it took a long time to be able to get over it. And even now, I realize now with anxiety and depression that had hit me, I had no idea what they were. I do feel it in little pangs every now and again as a warning sign, so I've got to deal with that. Debbie, you were just about to say something. Please feel free to join in. What's your thoughts on that?
I was just going to say that I loved actually what you had written in your descriptions on how to avoid burnout, because a lot of people don't prioritize their self-care, along with the other list of things, celebrating small wins, adopting a growth mindset. It's got to a stage now where fear seems to be controlling people more than imagination. Nobody wants to be a daydreamer anymore, because if you're a daydreamer, you tend to lose out. There's less excess cash than there would have been, say, 5-10 years ago before these crises happened. Having said that, though, we will evolve and we will then adapt to the best version of ourselves. But in the meantime, it's just, I guess, a little bit tougher than it should be.
Yeah, I don't know about evolving into the very best versions of ourselves. I think for most people, it's really difficult to be able to work out what we are right now before we become something better. And here's the thing. I hear what you're saying and I love what you're saying. But I think that when you are, it's like they say, that civilization breaks down when people lose out on 3 meal times. If you've missed out on 3 meal times, you will break into your neighbor's house, or you'll suddenly change your attitude towards things because you need to get some food inside you. Otherwise, there's a very good chance you could die. And so I think that the attitude changes. What we've got now is a slow burning death of lots of things that we thought was going to get better. Will we evolve into something better? I don't see how we do, because everything I see media-wise, everything, and it's not just that I'm looking for it, it all seems to lead towards tighten up your belts, things are tough. So even for the first time, I see celebrities really burnt out and sharing the fact that life is not so easy at the top, the way that we all perceived that it was a golden life for anybody who's famous. So I'm not sure whether that means something, but I'm happy to hope that I'm completely wrong on that, Debbie. What's your thoughts on that? And
You don't feel that maybe it's because we have more media coverage now than there was 10, 20 years ago, so people are able to communicate the reality of life in their version of it more than they would ordinarily? Because now people, celebrities in particular, are allowed to speak and say that the world isn't as rosy, and they are actually going through a hard time because there's been so many people that haven't spoken up and have suffered as a result.
I think there's
that's, again, another evolution.
Yeah, I do in a bit, but I also think that the nature of social media means that all the nasty people tend to be heard better. If you can get people wound up by saying things that makes them upset, then people will get upset, and then that gathers a crowd. It's like, for instance, if a fight starts in the middle of a street or in the middle of a bar or a restaurant, everybody drops what they're doing to have a look at where the fight is. And I feel that that's a massive currency, and it's been driven by social media because they love to see people fighting. It makes attention happen. Stephen, you're an expert on fighting more than anybody in the group. What's your thoughts on this, about burnout making an impact and the way the world is going? And happy red wine. It's a Friday, so it's probably red wine.
No, actually it's a whiskey.
Ah, silly me.
But you're close. You're starting to know me. Okay, you've raised a couple of interesting points. I'm currently reading about ancient Egypt, and what I find interesting is that even the slaves were allowed 1 day a week to do nothing, and they were actively forced to do nothing other than eat and sleep, if you can force somebody to do that, which I find interesting. I pick up on, I think it was Debbie's point about there's more internet activity, communications. You're not in the UK, so you're probably not aware of all the media commentary about knifings in London.
No.
Of which there were like 2 last week. If we go back to before the First World War and actually immediately after, sort of 1918 through to about 2022, 23, the police used to go around London, Birmingham, Manchester in squads of 8 to 10 policemen at a time in order to break up knife fights and just groups fighting each other. We hear about the knife fights, but you look at the historical perspective, and in actual numbers, there are less now than there were a century ago. And we look at it in terms of the number of knife fights as a percentage of population, and it's about 10 times less.
Right.
So just to put some perspective on the fighting and activities, we're hearing about it, it's in the media, it's everywhere you look, and it sounds like the world's a really bad place. You put the historical perspective in, it's not as bad as you might think.
That's fascinating.
Hackers are walking across London Bridge, but the chances of it happening are 1/10 of what they were a century ago.
You see, on that point, and I'm so glad you shared that with us, I've believed for a very long time, and the stats actually hold up on this, there are no more paedophiles around now than there's ever been throughout history. Your kids are just as safe as they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I would leave school and go play football and come home just in time for dinner. And during the weekends and during the summer holidays, I'd have my breakfast, go missing and come back when it was dark. And I'd eat around somebody else's house or not eat. It didn't matter. I was playing football. And nowadays, you won't even let your kids walk out the door. Now, the stats show that there's no more danger to them than there was before. Clearly, the knife fights and stuff is levels of that. But it's a paranoia that's been driven by amplifying the stories of terrible stuff that keeps everybody scared. And of course, as you know, when people are scared, that means that they're more compliant to whatever you want to tell them that they've got to do, because they want to make sure that they're okay. Generally, they are okay, but people don't feel that at this moment in time. But you're an expert on war tactics. Is that a war tactic thing that's being used on the population without us going into big brother conversations? It's just standard to keep people on edge. That way they're not looking at you as a problem creator. They're just looking at their own lives instead.
Well, that immediately brings us around to conspiracy theory stuff. I don't know if it's a conspiracy by the top 1% or the dangerous intellectuals or whatever. What I can say is, with some certainty, is that the effect of the media, whether it's mainstream media or the internet or any social activity that you care to look at, the groups that you mix with shape your behaviours and the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that the internet has allowed us to do is to join groups of like-minded people and to ignore that which we have no interest in or that we fear. So we get positive reinforcement of those things that from those people that we mix with, whether it's online or in person. You only have to go back 25 years, and it was not possible to meet such self-selecting groups to the same degree.
Mm.
You might join the bowling club or the cricket club or tennis or whatever in your area. You played football. I played chess and judo. But that was about the limit within sort of comfortable travelling distance. Now, if you've got an interest in being a neo-Nazi or psychological warfare or name the topic of your choice, actually you can get online and join multiple groups with those exact same interests. You only end up mixing with the people that positively reinforce your own thinking.
And part of
that's the environment we're in.
You're absolutely right. Part of the playbook of people who are right wingers is that they like to create hassle and wind people up when they can. And social media is fantastic for that, for making a big noise and getting people upset. And that's why, majority of people are just nice and chilled out and they don't want to have any anger or challenges from anybody else. We are much better connected, and it means an amplification of everything. And I mean, I've had this conversation many times about the fact that generally nice people don't go out and say, I'm nice. They don't say anything. It's only the people who make you laugh or the people who make you angry that get elevated to a position where they're shared with everybody. And that's very scary to think about. One of the things you said about ancient Egypt, I was reading about ancient Egypt myself, and ancient Egypt didn't have a middle class. It had the guys who were super rich at the top and the guys who were slaves or farmers who were just able to sustain themselves on their land, and nothing really in between. So when it came to having a...
hang on, that's not strictly true. In between, they had people like innkeepers.
Okay, go on.
Well, that was it. You had the innkeepers, the victuals, the semi-wealthy, the not slaves, not peasants, but had enough money to have a lifestyle of choice, were the people that were at the focal points for collecting grain, turning it into flour, windmills like myself, and other groups, particularly those making alcohol. Actually, that's about it.
Right. So there was a skeleton middle class, shall we say, who were the ones who had some kind of role of standing above what other people were doing below them and making money because they were getting it from above and below, but not the level that we're used to of some description. I think Aziza wants to say something on this as well. Aziza, what were your thoughts on this? You've been very quiet, I've got to say.
I was going to say two things. Number one, Debbie is living in England, but she's in Zambia at the moment for her holidays. Number two, you said, Stephen, that you were very surprised where the Egyptians forced their slaves to have one day off to do nothing. Are you surprised at their forcing the slaves to do nothing, or are you surprised that people do nothing?
No, it surprised me that they were actually forced to do nothing.
Why?
And if you look at the Israelis now, and you look at Shabbat, you'll see that they're not allowed to work, and work includes, for some of the more devout, even climbing stairs. But they do all their food preparation and cooking beforehand. They eat pre-prepared meals. They won't use a microwave. They won't cook, clean, or do anything. You look at where that comes from, and it actually comes back from the days when the Jews were slaves in Egypt. They took with them the concept of, for 24 hours, thou shalt not work in any way, shape or form. And culturally, it has remained.
And that's used everywhere, isn't it?
Well, I just wanted to say that in our household, it's not the Jewish thing, because I'm not Jewish. Everybody to do nothing on a Saturday, because that's when we force ourselves to not think about work, force ourselves to just focus, relaxing our brain. I always think forcing ourselves to not think of relax our brain, our body, our mind, physically, mentally, emotionally, to do nothing, and then come back on Sunday fresh again. I don't know. I just know that this is important for my family, because I know that all these years I see Dave just going on and on 24/7, and I said, no, this is not right. But everybody is just doing nothing. So I don't cook, I don't clean, I just be ordering. That's all we do. And watch TV. Or Maya goes on her iPad, or talk with her friends, or do art. And I don't know what Dave does, because he doesn't want me to be around with him. So yeah.
That's not true. Oh my goodness, the world's saying, "Oh, you ignore your wife." I kind of do a little bit, but I tend to potter in my office.
No, but that's because it's we have to shut away from each other, because otherwise we do nothing but talk about either work or Maya or business, and we have to not talk about it. We talk every day, every evening. We sit down and talk about everything around the world. Be it about politics, be it about situations around the world, we sit and we have open conversations, money and everything. But on that day, it's a shut off because I respect you need your space and they respect that I need my space.
Can we just to highlight the fact that we actually do work together? So we run a business together, and so 24/7 we're talking about work all the time. So really, the only way to avoid talking about work, which is our livelihood, is to have that bit of space and to recharge our batteries. But it is important to have that. What normally happens though on a Saturday is we have a breakfast together. So it's usually a cooked breakfast, and we chill out and we chat, and then we go off in our different directions and scurry, and then meet up at the end of the day or the next morning. And we're usually in the house during that time, unless we've got shopping or other things to do. But here's the thing, it kind of works. We're very closely knit, but we've also made sure that we meet for dinner every day. Whatever's happening, we sit together as a family, and that's very important to share the stories and know that we are close. So we do find a way of balancing it, if nothing else, and that's down to you, Aziza, to drive it.
I mean, can I also add to that it's not just limited to religion, and there are many religions that actually do it, SDA inclusive, where there's 24 hours where they don't do anything. It's something which people should do more of, simply because it's healthier. It's healthier.
I
It's a way of prioritizing self-care. Yeah.
I agree, totally agree.
I used to think it was really smart. Hello to Margaret. We're going to chat to Margaret in a minute. I used to think it was really smart to work weekends because then I could get an advantage over everybody else, because I'd work, and then I'd have things finished that they hadn't done, especially when I was working in radio. So I'd work weekends. I'd have a day off during the week, but because I loved what I did, I would never really take time off. And it was only later on when I changed industries that I realized, you know what, you're just going round in circles and you're less efficient. A lot of the stuff you do when you're kind of tired, you could have done in one day and had a break as well. So I think it's important, as you mentioned, about self-care, to take care of all that as well. If you just joined us, by the way, nice to see you. We're sharing thoughts and ideas on how to avoid burnout and still make an impact. One of the things that makes a huge difference is the ability to have a community who is there for you, to support you, and notice when you're sometimes getting it wrong and can step in and just basically gather you up, give you a virtual hug like we tend to do in this group here, and say, don't worry, we've got your back, we've got you, we'll sort it out for you. Margaret, you're incredible at bringing a group of people together. But you do about 3 or 4 different podcasts in a night, which is unbelievable. I don't know how you managed to do it, but you found the power in nurturing and bringing people together. And when I've sat in your groups, everybody's got a story that is usually heartbreaking in some capacity, but they find that having that community, sharing what's going on and saying things that really matter to other people in the room is really making a difference. So how did you nurture that? And did they find you, or did you find them?
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you for this wonderful room, and nice to see you, Debbie, Aziza, and Stephen. And let me just go ahead and say hello to the beautiful community that's here. Brian Being and Blessing and Martin, Romy, Alicia Tolver, Amy Powers, my brother Platine, the godfather of LinkedIn, Enio Song, who I am co-author with Lessons We Learned.
Hi, Margaret. So sorry. What is your question, or what is your share? What are your thoughts about the topic that Dave was asking? So sorry, what to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. With co-author with Lessons of COVID-19 that we had. And hello, Terrence, the beautiful Tracy, Cesar. Thank you for being here, Dr. Ash, Saeed.
Margaret, we can't go for everybody who joins the room. It'll never stop.
Yeah.
We've only got an hour.
Sorry, not your room.
Thank you for letting me know it's not my room.
No worries.
I was actually answering the question of you wanted to know about my community.
So
And welcoming them in is how I have my community.
Got you.
So when you hear me take the time out for the community and addressing them, like Epo Jude, who's an artist that just walked in, is why I have the community that I do have, in all respect to your room, Dave. And Is it Aziza or yeah. So if you want to know what community and having your back really is all about, is the level of respect that you show for others. And I am blessed to have a strong community, and I invited these people into, and Kenny, the community builder that you see down there, I guarantee you he invited people into.
Yeah, it's lovely.
This is why your room went from a room of 4 and 5 people to you'll have many people on here.
That's great.
I'm just going to make that point right there clear, that if you want to have a following and you want to know, have an encouragement, right? Because here's the reality, is that in life, we're going to go through ups and downs, right? And Dr. Arshad, Tracy, everybody, is going to have rooms to uplift one another. The godfather of LinkedIn, Enio Song, builds rooms and events too. How I do it, I build the Jam, which is a music room, which I welcome. And I just came from there to here and invited people here to your event. So, a community is based on love. Do you see all those hearts that are happening? That is because, the gratitude of being acknowledged. You have titles, you have all of these status and everything. I'm a practical speaker. I have a teenager who I practically communicate with. I don't have high-level words. I speak in a way that, everybody can understand, right? Because we have to come in 100% and authentic and genuine. I'm not going to come up here, go blah, 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 blah. That's not me. That's not me. I'm just going to show up as Margaret Martinez. Loud and proud, and then just grateful and gratitude. Yep. Thank you so much for your time. It's been enlightening and being in here.
Thank you, Margaret. Appreciate it as always, and it's great to see all your entourage coming out to play as well, which is wonderful. And it's great to see, as you rightly say, having the community and having it's down to different styles of room. It's not down to disrespect. The way that we've run this room is we keep it to an hour, and so therefore we normally go through very, very quickly to be able to get the points out. I understand that you have a different style of doing it, which is that you name check everybody and let everybody feel that they're valued in that, which I can understand completely, and it's beautiful and it works really well, and I validate that. And you've got a wonderful community which it's got different styles of running a room. That's the only big difference here. So one of the things that we're talking about is about burnout and how to make that impact. We're just discussing about the fact that social media has made it a lot harder for people to be able to communicate and for people to feel very, very welcome to be able to do the stuff that we need to do. Things are becoming a little bit more difficult as people are older and also feeling more threatened in their job. So what's the silver lining? What is the way that most people will be able to look at stuff and turn around and say, actually, we're doing all right? Because as of coming to the end of 2024, Aziza and I have many conversations about reinvention, about how we need to shift and pivot in what we do to stay relevant. But I know for many people who haven't lived in that particular space and haven't been in the media of some description, it's much, much harder to think that maybe all the stuff you've been trained to do isn't quite so easy when the world changes and doesn't see it as being such strong value. Love to know thoughts of people in the room on that. If you want to put your hand up and join us on stage, I'm very welcome to. We've only got about 15 minutes left of the room, so I'm really fascinated to see what that brings out in this conversation. And you may see that we've already got inside the details of the room a couple of different hints that you can use for being able to look after yourself with some self-care as well. Stephen, what's your thoughts?
I'm not going to answer your question. I will answer an earlier one. There are techniques that I was taught in the military for dealing with long-term stress and basically to directly avoid the risk of burnout.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
It boils down to you have to look after yourself and you have to be selfish with your time. I mentioned Shabbat, which is a leftover from 3,000 years ago, and it's become part of a particular nation's culture. But that's enforced relaxation. one of the things the military teaches, make sure you get enough sleep. Book the hours into your diary, your calendar, whatever one uses, and stick to a schedule that works. That's one. The other is that most of us have to work in the military. A 40-hour week would be a godsend. It's more likely 50 or 60, and occasionally it's double that. And the way that you work it is, if it looks like there's going to be an hour or two free, go and sit in the car. Make sure, go and have lunch. Even if you just sit outside for half an hour and munch on a sandwich that you would otherwise have eaten at the desk, do it outside. Move away from the desk, move away from the work.
Do you think, sorry, carry on. I was going to ask, do you think that those kind of techniques that you've mentioned there, which makes perfect sense, I did it today, I spent all day from very early on the computer, and I just had to go for a walk and just detox for a little while. That's not something that normally gets taught to people, though. Do you think those kind of techniques would be more useful if your general public knew that they existed and could use them as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have been laughed at in some of my roles where I've been an interim advisor or a consultant, in that I make a point of actually having a lunchtime. If I'm having a bad day, I'll go and sit in the car and I'll listen to some music, typically something like Gregorian chant, and just listen to it, the monks chanting in the background, for just half an hour, 40 minutes. And I come back and it's almost as good as having a couple of hours sleep. You have to think of your body as a machine. God, I sound like one of my old instructors there. Your body is a machine. And every machine needs its downtime for it to be serviced and for servicing and maintenance, or even just for refueling. And find the time for a little bit of R&R, rest and recuperation, every day, particularly if you've had a really bad meeting or you've gone through a number of hours or days of intense activity. Go for a walk, sit outside. The full advice was take your boots off, take your socks off, and stand and walk around in the grass for 10 minutes. You can get a recharge, and it's true, I've done it.
It's true, it's very true.
You can feel better after just 20 minutes of standing and walking on grass in bare feet.
Yeah.
Put your socks and your boots back on, get back into the fray.
It's amazing.
Makes a difference.
Definitely.
Little things.
Definitely. Sorry, go on. I know we've got a couple of people who want to jump in on that conversation. I think we've got, no, Debbie does. Aziza wants to jump in. We've got Caesar just joining on stage as well, and Dr. Arshad too. So we'll come back to that in a minute, Stephen. Debbie, you wanted to jump in on this, didn't you?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, to add to that, different techniques work for different people, the same way as different techniques for shows, different techniques for people. You have to start listening to yourself because you know what it is that you would need. So whether that escape from the pressure is a temporary thing, as leaving a room, or leaving a continent, as I've done, to come home to Zambia, you pretty much just get away, escape, and allow yourself to reground and get back on track to where you want to be, and just release whatever it is you don't need, is what I would add to that.
I love that. It's true. Aziza, do you want to jump in after this? Do you want to say something too?
So just quickly to say that I agree with what Stephen has to say previously, or when he talks about looking at walking on the grass. That's why my table faces the garden. I have to see green, otherwise I get so anxious. I can't have my table facing a wall, because then I'll get so I don't know what the right word is. I have to have it facing green. It helps my visibility, obviously, but B, it makes me more calmer, and I take regular breaks, which keep on telling Dave to do, but he's very stubborn. Carry on.
Yeah, but that's good. It's when I go downstairs, you say to me, have you done that? And I'm like, well, I'm taking a break now. Yeah, well, you still got that to do. Sorry, domestic. Caesar, you just joined us on stage as well. What would you like to say? Good to see you, by the way.
Oh, great to see you, Dave Crane. I always listen to your podcast, and I wanted to thank Kenny, who was here and now's not here. He was the reason why, you had this podcast. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. And thanks for Margaret for stepping up and really bringing us here. I just wanted to say, if it wasn't for these individuals, Dave, we wouldn't be here. I think the most important thing in burnout is understanding your body, right? I think your body from a holistic view, in terms of systems. My solution, for burnout, if you let air come in through the window and breathe and meditate, that's going to be very important. Another thing that I usually do is when I see a tree, I hug it. The reason why I hug a tree is because I embrace the radiance of the energy that the tree brings from its roots, from its ground, from its foundation, to interconnect with me. And how I do that is I hug it for 5 seconds. Then I step back, I sit down, and then I breathe, and then I breathe air from the tree that gives me oxygen. That's so important. Another thing that I also do is once I finish doing that, I go to the kitchen sink or the bathroom sink. And you know what I do, Dave?
No.
I let the cold water out. I just let it flow. You hear that drainage of the water just coming down. And you just hear the water itself, just coming down. That is also some form of a therapy, for you, just by listening. To water. So I think, these kind of things help me out with burnout because, yes, we are all, complex machines, systems, and we need, like Mr. Stephen Windmill said, R2R, recovery and recuperation. And I think with that, there's one saying that really stood out to me. There are two people in life, right? There's an individual that has an axe and another individual that has an axe. There are two individuals that have axes. One is going to chop the tree down continuously without any rest. The other one, he's going to chop the tree at his pace. He's going to chop the tree in resting phases. So what is he going to do? He's going to be eventually able to chop down the tree at a much more efficient pace than the other individual that's continuously hammering at it. And why is that? Because we need rest. And I think two of the most important things that are valuable in the solution to burnout is, number one, nutrition, to keep our ATP in our body and the intake of food valuable to what we bring in on an everyday basis. And the second thing is sleep. Having a good night's rest is very important.
Yeah.
And maybe the last thing to just put the icing on the cake to avoid burnout, make someone laugh. If you make someone laugh, Dave, the day goes by so much more quickly, and the burnout is not as stringent because you have a relationship with that energy. And with that, I yield back. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I appreciate that, Cesar. It's a really interesting thing that you shared with us then about laughing, because what happens is when you laugh, the dopamine kicks in and it sends a shock all the way through your system that just optimizes everything you are and everything you do. It's been shown that one of the best ways of dealing with cancer is to have a therapy of a regime of watching comedy stuff that allows you to just be optimized better. The same as having cold showers is great for fighting anti-aging because it shocks your system into having to deal with different things rather than just the comfort of just winding yourself down. So there's got to be a lot said for that. Appreciate you sharing that. Dr. Arshad, you've been sitting there comfortably. I know Stephen's waiting to jump in as well, but Dr. Arshad's just been waiting and we'll go to Stephen afterwards. What's your thoughts on this, sir?
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me up. I had my own audio room yesterday for about 90 minutes, and we talked about stress and anxiety, We talk about machines being oiled all the time. Everybody, you see, if you look at your human body, you've got different organs performing different tasks. And as we all know, stress kills. That is where you have burnout. And I've had it myself. I've had a heart attack. I've been a top-notcher all over the world running operations of multinational companies and ending up as a managing director and finally chairman of TIPS, and everybody wants me to have me on board. But enough is enough. Like what Margaret had said, I fully agree with her. She's into my rooms. Caesar also, I agree with him completely, 100%. You see, there is so much that you can take. And you normally move around with like-minded people, negative thinking, negative thoughts, being cut off suddenly from anybody. All that creates stress which can actually not let you perform at your higher standards. And unfortunately, it does result in systems breaking down. Where you have machines breaking down, the human body has organs that also resultantly do break down. And therefore, we all have to take it in stride, as all of you all have pointed out, actually. Whether the Egyptians took breaks, forced rest, as I would say, but it's absolutely 100% true. You need to take breaks constantly, otherwise you are taking a major toll on your human body. And that is something that I just wanted to add before we close out.
Thank you, Doctor. It's so true, because here's the thing, most people don't appreciate what a weekend is. It's called a weekend because your week has got to end. If you constantly work through the weekends, you end up in a situation where the whole week just extends. And you can do it for about 3 or 4 weeks, and after that you forget why you're actually going to work in the first place. It's like if you don't get any sleep for a couple of days, after a while you start hallucinating about what is real, what's not, and you're cranky and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. So you do need to have ways of as many people mentioned, respecting your body, treating it like a machine, and looking after it and oiling the works properly to make sure it all functions properly. Mariam, nice to have you in the group as well. Do you want to share something with us as well?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I came in a little bit late, but I wanted to join you on this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to share something. A year ago, I had a burnout, and because I had an objective, it's kind of professional and personal objective. And the whole 2023, I was working hard like a machine to get to my objective, and till I broke.
Oh dear.
Completely. Yes. I couldn't laugh or enjoy anything anymore.
So sorry to interrupt you, Mariam, because I think it's important that people recognize the signs of this. When you say you broke, you mean that all the normal range of emotions that we get access to, that we just take for granted, had stopped working, and so you just found yourself in a pause mode, in limbo, unable to respond the way that you'd normally do to normal stimulants. Is that what happened?
Yes, I wasn't myself anymore. I am a joyful person. I don't know if we can say that, but I wasn't myself anymore. And thanks God, there were people who knew me and very well, and they noticed that I wasn't myself. So I think they rescued me by intervening and asking me to see a professional. and that's what I did. Of course, after the burnout, the symptoms of the burnout is depression. Donc, I had depression, not strong one. Sorry if I'm expressing myself.
No, you are. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you. Please continue. I mean, do you mind if I jump in to ask you a question, because I think it's really important to be able to clarify. So, when you had your friends intervene, how long had you been in a state of burnout before people came and started to rescue you? And also, were you able to appreciate the fact that you had gone down that state? Or were you in denial and they had to basically take charge and do an intervention on your behalf?
No, I wasn't in denial. I suspected that myself, but I couldn't do anything for a while. And I was about 1 month or 2 months till my sisters. It's not they're not friends, but they were my sisters. They found out that I was passing by difficult phase, and they came and they asked me to go slowly and see if I could go to a professional, because it wasn't easy for me.
No.
And they encouraged me to do so, and so we did. I'm thankful, because I have a caring family, and I'm thankful for them.
Well, we're grateful for them as well, because of them you're able to come and join us and share this with us now, which is very important. Can I ask you about the time it took to recover to a point where you actually felt that you were back to your normal self again? Nice to see Hussein, by the way. We'll get you to talk after Debbie. But Mariam, how long did it take before you felt you'd gone back to normal after you started getting treatment?
After 3 months.
Right.
Yeah,
So sorry, I wanted to interject, because Mariam is actually my sister-in-law.
Ah.
And she is a lovely, lovely person who is actually selling herself short because she stopped what she was doing, and now she's doing so much better, and she's doing a lot of strong, positive work with software testing. So she does a lot with computers. She's based in Tunisia. So Mariam, thank you so much for coming up. So yeah, you've come a long way. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And all the love of the group to you as well, Mariam. Thank you for coming up and sharing that experience. It's not easy, because for a lot of people, and we're going to talk to Hussein in a moment as well, it's almost seen as a weakness when you turn around and say, I can't cope. And in many circles, it is seen as that, because if you turn around and say, I'm having a really hard time, most people will say, oh, I feel for you. Well, I still need to get this stuff done. Is there anybody who's actually functioning so I can get it done properly? And it's still a fault in society. And I was hoping that we'd snap out of that with the pandemic. And unfortunately, not enough people do feel that. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Mariam. It makes a big difference. Hussein, you joined... Sorry, go on. Thank you.
I was going to thank you for and just the last thing about the trees. It's grass. When I take off my shoes and I have a contact with the grass. I feel the same thing. I'm energized. I feel the energy of the grass and the dust,
the earth and the ground beneath your feet.
The dust, underneath the grass, there's
earth. Sand. Mud.
The earth. Yes, the earth.
Fantastic.
It gives me energy, and it helped me also to cope with everything.
I'm glad to hear that, Mariam. Thank you. And one of the things is, before you just go to Hussein, do you remember, for those of you who, I don't know if anyone in the room is my age, but when I was a kid, I used to play in mud. I used to have a lot of fun just going in the garden. You play with worms, you dig up stuff in the garden, and all the rest of it. Kids don't do that nowadays for whatever reason. But one of the things is, it also means that your immunity system becomes a lot stronger, because you eat and you do ridiculous stuff in nature, and it just changes your physiology. It makes a big difference. Kids don't do that now. They stay inside on their iPads, and so their immune systems are a lot less. And I think that if you can get them out into nature and get to experience it, there's a lot to be said for it. It's not only like a drug to be outside in the wilderness, but it's also very healing for you. So, Mariam, thanks for reminding us, and Stephen and Debbie doing so as well. Hussein, you've been very patient, my friend. What would you like to share with the group?
Oh, thank you, Dave. Just I want to share about that, because I'm living in the Maldives, which is a island nation country. There's a half-mile beaches everywhere. So I think
I'm so jealous of you, Hussein. Go on.
So for the burnout, I feel that it's important to take half an hour at least per day, my time. Because usually we are catering for demand of other people every day. Never get our own, never think about our own. So I usually go to beach side because there's a white sand there. Remove the shoes and walk on the earth. Beach. You feel each and every piece of sand. It's a message due to brain. It's a refresh it. The other thing is that I feel that writing gratitude journal every day, at least 2-3 things what you are proud or you are happy about it, because even though we have so many good things happen, we never remember unless we keep writing it. So it helps to refresh us and avoiding burnout. Thank you, Dave, for giving me a chance to say.
Thank you, Hussein. And you are living in paradise. And one of the things I love about Maldives, which is my favourite place on the planet, is the fact you've got blue skies, you've got blue seas, you've got the beautiful, just the wind on your face and in your hair. And it's just the most amazing experience. So being very spiritual out there makes perfect sense, apart from when the storms come, which is quite a lot. But when it's beautiful, there's nothing like it. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's really important, and this is true for everybody who's in the group as well, and I thank you for coming to join us and having the patience to hear what we're sharing here. I think it's really important to find a way that works for yourself, and also to experience the right kind of self-care as you do it, because everybody's got different ways of dealing with it, and most people don't know until it's too late. And I think it's really important just to be transparent with yourself and to do that self-care. When you talk about the gratitude stuff, which is really important, Aziza bought us, myself and my daughter, Maya, gratitude journals last year, and I hardly used it, and I realised it's a big challenge here. I know, but here's the thing that I'm going to be doing from now on, and I didn't tell you about this, but it's something I've half programmed in. I'm programming into my phone every hour for it to chime, and when it chimes, it's going to tell me something I'm grateful for. And so I'm programming it in to go off all the time, just as a bing, a little bing, something like that, because it'll just remind me about the amount of abundance there's out there, the amount of goodwill, the amount of good people, the amount of good food. And sometimes it's easy to forget it because you get bogged down with your work or with challenges, but we're very lucky to be here. The odds of us all being here at this moment right now is a miracle, and most people don't appreciate it. If you look back over the center of time from the very, very beginning of human beings, we started off as apes, and then before that we were whatever it was that lived in the sea, and then started off before that as maybe tadpoles. As you can tell, I don't watch the Discovery Channel very much, but the odds of going from, say, a tadpole or an amoeba to then being able to then grow legs and come out of the water and then live on land and then be able to find somebody who you can procreate with long enough to be able to have children that live long enough, and you've got pestilence, you've got disease, you've got famine, you've got war, you've got climate climate change, the odds of us being alive right now and in this room are zero. We shouldn't be here. The odds are so stacked against us. I mean, if you look at the world right now, we live long. We do really well. But that wasn't the case, take it back to 100 years ago. No chance. Take it back to the pandemic 100 years ago with Spanish flu, and I don't mean offense to anybody who's Spanish. It's a ridiculous name, but that's what we call it. It wiped out so many more than our recent pandemic took out. So sometimes the gratitude should just be realizing you are a miracle, and the fact that you're breathing and you've got food in your belly and you've got friends or people arguing with you means that you are relevant. And sometimes that's enough. That's what I think anyway. Sorry I was interrupting people. I'd love to know your thoughts on this as I'm wittering on and becoming a big hippie as well. Debbie, I think you're going to go next, aren't you?
I was... Yeah, no. Well, when you talk about hippie, I need to start my day with meditating, with gratitude practices. And then throughout the day, I will ground myself and find things to be grateful for. The most minuscule thing to big things throughout the day whilst grounding myself as I go. And I end the day in gratitude as well.
If
hippie in you, Dave, is joining me.
The hippie, there you go. I've got the long hair and the beard to go with it. Not a long beard, but I'll probably chop it a little bit later as well. But I think that, you see, one of the things is, when I grew up, people were saying to us about the fact that you could be anybody you want to be. And I don't think that is true. You can't be anybody you want to be. You'll be the best that you can be. But you're also going to get a lot of circumstances and challenges and things that come along to make your life more difficult. That's just the way that life is. But I do believe that you can have a great life doing the stuff that you really want to do. And sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you have great days, and sometimes you have terrible days. But one thing you do get is an experience. And that experience is what it's about. It's not the end result. It's not about making in millions and living in a castle and having the most amazing, servants feeding you. It's not. It's the journey, the adventure every day, waking up and saying, what's going to happen today? I have no idea what that's going to be, but I'm really excited to see what it is. The survey that was done pre-pandemic said that for those people who had predominantly made a ton of money and lived in the effect of an ivory tower, tended to be white males who were in their early 30s, 40s, who had made a lot of money through whatever business venture, but that was also the highest suicide rate. Because if you don't have to struggle and you don't have to work so hard, I'm not having a go at white males, but I'm just showing the figures, those are the people who would get more depressed because they had nothing to prove to anybody. And part of what life is about is proving to yourself and proving to the world as you do it that you are alive and there are challenges and you overcome them. And if it was easy, what would you get out of it to prove you really had a good time during your time on Earth? And I think that that's what makes it really good. One of the challenges that's going to face myself and face Margaret and everybody else who's joined us in this session today is the fact that LinkedIn is going to be killing these rooms. It's already sent out a message to everybody. The audio rooms are disappearing as of tomorrow. No, as of the 2nd of December, you can't book another audio room. They're just removing the facility. So if you want to book yourselves in, as I did today, I booked in the next 4 weeks in advance because you won't have that facility. It just won't work anymore. And next year, they're going to make it video rooms. Now, does that mean that everyone's going to have to come onto video and speak, or you still got an audio voice? I don't know what their technology is going to be, but it will change things. So is that for the better? I think it is. The reason why? Because it just keeps things moving. And I have no doubt if it doesn't work, we'll go back to what we had before. But part of the evolution is to see what's going on around you and to raise your game so you don't get left behind. I think that's a real challenge that goes into people that are our kind of age, where you just kind of like don't want to do anything, stay in your comfort zone. Debbie, you wanted to ask about the survey. Go ahead. What was the question?
Okay, yes, I did want to ask because, as you well know, I'm half African, and there was a lot of wealth in Africa with people that are of every colour and brand. However, we don't feel the need to publicise it or be on Forbes. So that survey that showed that most people were, what did you refer them as?
Well, it was a Western survey, so I guess that's why the demographics were that. Remember that until recently, the Western world saw the rest of the world as third world. And now they're going, what, you guys have got all the same resources as us, and you've got oil and diamonds and gold and young people. Oh, and you're not spending all your money on old people who've retired. You've got young people who are doing amazing things. Wow, you're not third world anymore. So there is a shift, thank goodness, coming with that. So I apologise for the survey. I'm just sharing what I had in front of me.
No, I wasn't saying that at all. All I'm saying is that there's also a world outside of what other people see on the media and the rest. Like, for us here in Zambia, we still very much respect our elders, so they're always being taken care of. It doesn't require that they have to be in a home. They're still at home. They're still at your home whilst they're being taken care of. They're respected in the streets, whether you know them, whether you don't. And the wealth is abundant. Not necessarily with it's not with all groups, but that's why when we're referring to the survey, I think there's wealth all over the world in all cultures.
Yep.
Just people don't publicize it as much.
There's enough for everybody. That's definitely true. And if we had a different way of looking at banking and so on, and everybody was saving and then they'd buy when they had some money and they would sell what they had before. So rather than buying a brand new car, you get whatever car you can. And from that money, you start saving while driving an old banger. And then when you can upgrade it, you sell the old banger and so on. It means you're never in debt. You're only living within your own means. And everybody could have a car and everybody could have what they want. But it's not set up to be like that. And we're finding more and more now that the super rich are just growing and doing incredible stuff. Elon Musk the other day made $64 billion. The other day. And you've got to look at the fact that, could you share it out? Well, I don't think Elon Musk is a bit of a sharer, to be honest with you, even though he is a genius. And like Lex Luthor, he's doing incredible stuff to be able to take us to Mars and so on. But I think that it's really about the community that you can build around you. And I also think that what you've got to do is reach out and help people up when you can, which is what I see in the rooms that we do. And certainly with Margaret and her incredible community, it's a massive supporting ecosystem. And from the times I've been there and watched the conversations happen, everybody in those rooms has time to share everything that they need to nurture. It's about the emotions and the growth that we have. And I was hoping in my lifetime we'd see a much closer world. And I've got to say that the internet has meant that we can communicate much better. And here we have, I would say, of the, 20 plus people that we got in a room, 22 plus people who got in a room, I would hazard a guess that maybe 10 different countries are represented, not looking at nationalities, that'd be even more, by the people in the room. That's a given. That's a beautiful thing that the internet has given us. But I also think that for many people, they really do trivialize their relationships and they don't reach out the way that you would do in a community. So, for instance, when they did a survey, they've got these things called blue spots. I think they're called blue islands or something, blue spots, where the average person lives to about 100 years old. And there's one in Italy, I think there's one in Japan. I might be wrong about the Japan one. And so the average person, they did a survey and they said, well, what is it that makes these people live for so long? And they just stood around and watched them and just took notes and interviewed everybody to find out what it is. Is it in the diet? Well, not really. They have a lot of bread and cheese and ham in Italy. That's standard. Is it in the drinking? They're not drinking. No, they're drinking. They're having the red wine, the white wine, and doing all the rest of the stuff. But what is it that makes these people live for such a long time? And the reason they live is because everybody feels valued by everybody else. They pray together. They go through birth together. They share all this good stuff. They value their old people. So even if they can't do the job that they're doing 20 years earlier, they've still got something to do in a community, whether it's just babysitting or just, washing or contributing in some way. So everybody feels that they're there for a reason. It used to be the case that men would die after 7 years of retirement, and women would live a little bit longer. And the reason for that is because when you do retire in the old days, when you kind of like get your pension and everything, you're kind of shut down because there's no challenges or things to keep you going. And you're isolated from the community and the conversations around the water cooler that you'd have normally. What we've found now, and it's an unfortunate thing, it's a good thing, but it's an unfortunate thing, is that women are now starting to die at the same kind of rate great as men, because women are equal in the workplace, working just as hard, completely valid, but having the same kind of stress. So it's that ability to have that community around you, and if you can get it to work for you while you're at work and while you're at home and when you retire, then the odds are you'll still be there for as long as you want to be on the planet. I think that's a really important thing to look at when it comes to burnout and still make an impact. The impact is one that you need to have for you. And if you can spread that love and that joy and that happiness and that support to other people, then they'll do the same for you. And that allows you to live longer. That's what I kind of surmise from what we've said in the group about creating that community and that importance of doing it. It's going to be interesting to see what takes over when we do change the algorithms. Maybe we'll find ourselves on Clubhouse in the future. Any thoughts before I think we should put the room to bed in a few minutes' time? Because it kind of feels like we've got to a point where the only thing left is to sing Kumbaya and have a group hug. That's the only thing I'm thinking of right now.
I was just going to add that, if you find that your purpose is to help others and you're looking outside of yourself, I think you're more inclined to find more peace and more blessings, in my opinion, because you're helping others from the depth of your heart. That way you're not so much looking at what you're trying to achieve in yourself, and all round it gets good results. That's just my viewpoint.
I would add to that giving to others is really important, but I think you have to give to yourself as well. So you've got more to give to others. If you're an empty tank, you've got nothing to share with anybody else. So you do have to be selfish to a degree. As Stephen was saying earlier, take the time to make sure that you're okay. And then when you're okay from a position of abundance, you've got a lot more to share with others. Would you agree with that, Debbie? I know Dr. Arshad's going to say something.
No, 100%. I strongly believe in self-care and being selfish. And I say that as a single mother of 3. You need to put yourself first, because if you don't, you've got nothing to give to anybody else. But it doesn't mean that you haven't got enough to share with everybody else.
I agree with you. Dr. Arshad, you put your hands straight up and jump back on the stage immediately. Yeah, so I'm waiting to hear what you say.
Thank you very much. Cheers to you and what Debbie just said. We are born alone, we die alone. We owe it to ourselves to look after ourselves. It's called self-care. And I think that is one of the last messages that I'd like to leave with all of you all, that do look after yourselves, take care. The world may be a dangerous place if you do not look after yourself. And like Dave has properly brought out the subject of burnout, I agree 100%. You have to take a rest now and again and stop doing what you're doing if you're doing too much. Thank you very much, Dave.
I appreciate that. That's really kind of you to share that with everybody, and your wisdom is going to resonate. I think this room has been a really special one because of the fact that the things that we shared are not just about AI, not just about business, they're actually about the things that really we don't get told at school, and often we don't get told at work. The ability to work out why we're doing this in the first place. What is it that's going to keep us happy and joyful? And also, as you go through life and you have this adventure and you go to the very end of your days, you want to go there with a big smile on your face saying, you know what, if it ends tomorrow, I had the best time ever. And if you can't do that, then adjust it now. Because I don't see the value of when it comes to the final time, you turn around and say, oh, I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd helped more people. I wish I'd had more experience. I wish I'd taken more thrills into what I do to be able to make me a stronger, better person. I think we're so blessed and so lucky to have one go at this life. I know people have belief systems that say otherwise, but do what you want to with it and enjoy it. And sometimes that means doing stuff that other people don't get. When I came out to live in Dubai 30 years ago, I had to leave my friends, my family, and my girlfriend behind because I just couldn't find the job that I wanted and the life that I wanted in the UK. I wanted to travel and see if there's a place that was better. And I found it for me, Dubai was better. And what happened? Well, I split with my girlfriend. She came over, but she went back for various reasons. And my friends and I, we never really saw each other. A handful of them have been blessed. I've been able to still see them. My family, we lived apart for 30 years. We saw each other a handful of times. You could count it on one hand. And my parents come to live with me in Aziza for a short amount of time. if I look back at it and those choices I made and the risks I took and the going off on my own and leaving everybody behind, would I change it and go back? Not for a second. Not for 1 second why I've made a different decision, because I would not be who I am with the daughter I've got, the wife I've got, the room we're sharing time with, the relationship we've got with Debbie joining us and Stephen and on Dr. Arshad and Margaret and all the wonderful people, Mariam, who've been on stage, Cesar and everybody else who've been, Hussein, and Joanna's been very quiet because I think she's saying, well, everyone else is already busy saying the stuff. She normally jumps on stage as well. This wouldn't happen if you hadn't got the chance to just meet new people and reach out. So when you have bad days and you see them as the very worst, I always think that every cloud has a silver lining. You sometimes have to look really deep to see what it is. And I also think that some days, and I'm going to swear now and I apologize, you do get shitty days. They are bad days, are horrible days, and sometimes it's really hard to find the reset button. But the reset button is when you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and maybe it's not quite as bad, but a tiny, tiny little bit as it was before. There is always something you can grab hold of, whether it's just the fact you're starting a new day or other people have forgotten about what's going on or whatever it is. Reach out and grab it, because before you know it, when it's all over, you'll think, I wish I'd done more with it. Final points of people in the room before we put it all to bed, because I think it's a really good time to let everybody go off and do what they need to do. Some people have just woken up, our friends in America. Some people are going to be going to bed, people who are based in the UAE and maybe India as well. And some people are just going to go home, put their feet up and watch a little bit of Netflix. So Stephen, do you want to share something with the group as something you take away from today, or some wisdom that you want to share? You did some really good stuff today as well, by the way, my friend.
I'll pick up on your earlier point about having a group. This is about the fifth or the sixth one of your events that I've attended. And there's always something. A point to note, a refreshed thought. It's a worthwhile activity. That's what my takeaway is. That I'm enjoying attending the group. And even if I haven't learned anything new, it's reminded me of stuff that I did know.
That's as good a compliment as I'm going to get from you anyway, but I'll take it and I'll run with it. Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure. I had nothing else to do on a Friday. I had my whiskey. I was a bit bored, so I popped in and I wasn't bored. That's great. I'll take that to the bank. But I appreciate having you here, with Stephen. Everything you share is always a value.
Go for it.
You too. Thank you, my friend. Dr. Arshad, you're still on the stage. I'd look forward to hearing your thoughts on today. Anything you'd like to share, that incredible wisdom that you shared earlier, that you want to share with everybody now?
Yeah, thank you, Dave, once again. Sharing is caring. That's the catchword for me. And I would suggest to everybody, keep away from negative people, because that is what can result in horrible burnout. And find like-minded people. Find people who are agreeable, should I say. Because if you keep getting negative thoughts, people are grumbling, people are doing all kinds of things these days. So keep away from them. Find good people to talk to.
I love that. That's very true. And one of the things I'll say, and I've got to say thank you to Margaret, and sorry for the slight disrespect about moving the conversation on earlier. It wasn't meant to be disrespect. We just got different styles of running a room. One of the things that I learned, my wife shared with me, and it's something that if you don't know it, it's really important to know this. When you talk about the groups of people that we have in our community and the people that we're close to, there's a phrase that everybody gets wrong, which is blood is thicker than water. And that's used and manipulated to make people snap into it with their family. Blood is thicker than water. Forget your friends, you got family here, look after them. Yeah, but our family are kind of like stupid. Doesn't matter, blood is thicker than water. And that's not the real phrase. Aziza, do you want to share what the real phrase is? Because I think that everybody who hears it is going to go, oh, we've got it wrong.
Yeah, sure. The actual phrase is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water from the womb. So basically it means that the covenant are the friends that you the friends that become your family, the family that you make. The water from the womb is the family you're born from. So basically prioritize the family that you make the friends that become your family. So those are the family you may prioritize that rather than the family that you're born from. If they're toxic, if they're negative, if they're bad, don't have that fall back to, oh, I still gotta speak to this so and so cousin just because blood is thicker than water. Nope, that's the wrong phrase.
So I hope that has an impact on everybody who's thinking, especially around about time of Thanksgiving and Christmas, I have to go back in there. I have to deal with these people. And I know there's going to be a big fat fight. I don't go with my cousin or my brother or my sister. And I have to because I'm duty bound. You're not duty bound. And this saying, if you please Google it, look it up yourself. Blood is thicker than water. Work out where it comes from. This is an old, ancient English saying going back hundreds and hundreds of years where if they felt they had to say it and had to share it, it's because there's something like, even going back to those times, the pressure that's put on people to do the wrong thing for the right people, the right thing for the wrong people is still important. So when you're talking about self-care and you got people that you love and they're not your immediate family, and you got people in your family who just don't look after you properly, you now officially from this group have the permission to turn around and say, I love you, but I can't spend quality time with you other than what I do right now. So that's it. Debbie, final words. In fact, Aziz, is there anything you want to say before we hand it over to Debbie? Because Debbie's kind of like in the dark here. So go on.
Yeah, okay, sure. I just want to say to everybody, please take the time to read the details because Dave has written down some powerful insights about this topic. And I think that a lot of people are still facing difficulties in putting boundaries to anyone else apart from yourself, and it's okay. You can just say, no, I'm not doing that, or no, I'm too busy, or I'll do it another time, or I'll come to you in 3 hours. It's okay. I give you permission. This room gives you permission. The whole world gives you permission to say that.
There you go. That's a beautiful thing. And over to Debbie for our final words on today's session. It's been great. I really enjoyed today's session. I think got a lot out of it on an emotional level more than, business level, which makes a nice change.
I mean, as always, yes, thank you. So for those that did miss earlier, I'm sat in the dark as I'm currently in Zambia and we have no electricity. So I'm here with candles, which is why I get the VIP treatment. So thank you, Dave. My last words would be connections and community are great, but don't be afraid to isolate yourself when you need to, and always, always do what feels right for you. There you go.
I love it. And thank you for sitting in the dark to spend quality time on your phone in Zambia when everyone else has got generators and you just headed back. And that's why you're there dealing with the candle stuff for a while. But I really appreciate the fact you're being here because you make our room better when we have your wisdom and your continuity and the thoughts that you bring to us. So with that being said, it's been an honor and a pleasure to spend so much quality time with everybody. I think that one of the lessons to take away is to stop being harsh on yourself, reach out, and if you don't ask, you won't know. So if you're having a hard time, ask somebody. You'll be surprised how many people, especially post-pandemic, do realize that we do feel connection and they can help you. It's a strange thing to throw in from a business point of view, but as a person who trains speakers to go out and do stuff, when people start speaking, most of them do it they call themselves a professional speaker, but they don't get paid. And the reason they don't get paid is because nobody's got a budget to pay them. Have you got any budget? No. Well, okay, well, I'll just do it for free. But here's the mindset you need to have with this. Never do it for free. Always do it for barter, even if they have no money. You'd be surprised how many people would turn around and say, well, actually, we can do this for you, or we can help you with that instead. Or I've got resources like restaurant vouchers. Why am I bringing up the business side? Because you'd be surprised how many people, if you reach out and say, can you help me, can actually help you or know somebody who can help you. You just have to ask. And I ask you to have the most amazing weekend. It's been an honor and a pleasure having you here with me. Next week on the 6th, we're going to do the next couple of Fridays. Margaret, make sure you and your team book in the next couple of the times that you have already. The 2nd of December, they close all the rooms down, so you won't be able to do it anymore, and then we don't know what's going to happen in a year's time. But you're all welcome to come and join us next Friday, the subject of which I can't remember. because I can't touch any of the buttons, because if I do, it closes a room, but you'll be able to see it in my feed. And I look forward to catching you soon. Have the most amazing weekend, and thank you so much for coming out to play. Remember, just jump and grow wings on the way down, and life will be good for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.